Welcome back to another short discussion video, gamers. In this video, I'm going to briefly discuss about Honkai Star Rail with the perspective of someone who loves and have played many turn-based RPG games. But before we go deeper, do leave a like and subscribe to my channel, as I'm going to make more content regarding Honkai Star Rail, and your support will help me so much in improving the quality and the quantity of the video. Without further ado, let's get into the video.
Welcome to the stage of history retold.
I've been a big fan of turn-based RPG since I was a kid, enjoying from Final Fantasy, the Atelier series, the Persona series, and recently, for the past few years, I've been playing a mobile game, FGO. One of my favorite modern RPG of all time is Persona 5. And one of my favorite of old schools is Suikoden 2. Lately, I've been itching to experience more turn-based games as flashy as Persona 5 and rich with characters as Suikoden 2. But alas, the one that comes really close are the Legend of Heroes games. But it takes a while for the localization team to localize it to English, so I had to wait for a long time in order to play those games. And then Star Rail was announced and the turn-based visuals really captivated me. Then I can't help but wonder, will it be as fun when I actually play the game? I'm going to share a little bit of my first impression regarding Honkai Star Rail as a turn-based RPG lover after playing Star Rail for about 15 hours. Let's talk a little bit the state of turn-based RPG these days. I know that turn-based RPGs are not as popular maybe about 20 years ago, since for so many these days, the flow of the game seems very slow. In modern times, what did successful turn-based games do in order to keep attracting players? What did Persona 5, Legend of Heroes, and if we are taking another live service games like FGO, what exactly did they do? Personally, after experiencing those games myself and observing many other people play those games, it comes to a few things. It is all about the presentation and making the right combat mechanics. And lastly, in order to keep players from quitting the game in the middle, they need to have a story that piques their interest. In this video, allow me to quickly present my first impression on these three elements of Star Rail. We are going to discuss in depth regarding this element in my in-depth review that I'm going to make sometimes next month, since I need more time to play the game and analyze all of these features and elements of the game. Let's cover the presentation first. I would say for a turn-based game, Honkai Star Rail did a stellar job. As of now, I'm using Persona 5 as my golden standard. At this point, Star Rail is not as mind-blowing as Persona 5 in terms of overall game presentation, but I think Star Rail is not too far behind. Persona 5 is really up there because everything about the game has flares to it. The UI is very stylish, the level design of each dungeon is over the top, but it is so memorable. The combat is very well animated. If I make comparison with Star Rail, I really like that the most important UIs in Star Rail is very colorful with so many celestial themes. The regions and level designs are so distinct, and the size is good enough to traverse without making players feel bored traversing them, which is why I prefer stage-based exploration rather than open world. Next, the character animations are pretty good in combat, and really like seeing the characters using their ultimates especially. Unlike Genshin, all the 4-star characters in this game get really cool cuts in. Lastly, the character designs are very distinct, and most of them blend very well with the place that they belong to. With my favorites are the characters from Silver Main Guard from Chapter 1. And lastly, for my personal satisfaction, the main character actually has a design that I like. Speaking of Genshin again, I do like Genshin characters. However, I can't help but feel that the main character, the Traveler design, is so bland compared to other characters. And his gameplay kinda sucks, until he gets his Dendro element, that is. Moving on to the second topic, let's talk about the combat mechanics. The combat is very simple 4-member party with each character has access to basic attacks, passive, skill, and ultimate move, with each characters are divided based on their roles and elements. What's so great about the game at the moment, they have 7 elements and 7 roles, which allows for a wide variety of character combinations, and each characters can be designed with a specific role in mind, meaning that we can have so many unique characters in the future. So if you're ignoring efficiency, you can build all kinds of party synergy, at least on paper. Moving on, the enemies have weaknesses that you can exploit to give yourself a tiny bit of advantage, depending on which element you use to break their gauge. At this point, this system is fine, and it is quite a standard and turn-based game. I was just hoping that if we manage to break all of the enemy gauge, we can get some rewards like our Persona series has and all-out attacks to deal massive damage to the enemies, and give us a choice to focus on one enemy at a time or breaking all the enemy gauge to receive that reward. I just hope that there's no obvious power creep happening in the game at some point, as many live service games experience it, especially when SSR character just makes ASR character useless. I'm also hoping that the combat mechanics will be expanded in the future, especially if you can have 1 or 2 characters as your reserve party that you can swap out during combat, and perhaps provide some kind of support, passive support while being on the reserve. That way we can also make use of the big roster of characters in the future. As for the story, it was kind of overwhelming that they dumped quite a bit of in-game terms and lore at the beginning of the game that I was so confused on what they are talking about. However, when the game started in Space Station and moving to different planets, really caught my attention to keep going because it really reminds me of another favorite game of mine, the Star Ocean. After finishing the prologue, so far I'm loving the pacing of the story, and the quality is so much better than Genshin early stories in my opinion. If the story continues to be as engaging as the early games, I'm really looking forward to see some more of the story. In conclusion, all in all, Honkai Star Rail really scratched my turn-based game itch. It is a lot more fun than I thought it would be, so I'm going to play this game for a long run. I'm going to make an in-depth review of the game along with more discussion on my expectations for the game sometime during May, because the honeymoon phase of the game should have dissipated a little bit, so look forward to it. Until the next video, stay sharp gamers!
Thanks for watching, bye! Please subscribe, guys!
The legend will never die.